Not as busy tonight as it was at this time last night, but we have still a bit of action going on here and there. Heat and humidity in the Northeast and mid-Atlantic states and Ohio Valley. There's scattered thunderstorms around, and there's some isolated severe thunderstorms that are popping up here and there. And we've got tropical storm warnings because Tropical Storm Alberto is in the southwest Gulf of Mexico and heading for the Mexican coast. And heavy rains continue in South Texas. So we'll be talking about that the rest of the week, the weekend, the long range, and anything else you want to talk about. Because, you know, we like to talk about things on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which is brought to you by Tempest by Weatherflow. The revolutionary Tempest weather system can be yours. And you can join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet by getting one. The weather station is easy to install and runs right off your mobile device. The link is on the description to this podcast. And if you use the coupon code SPRING 2024, you will get.
You'll get 10% off.
Yes, you will. Okay. So, tell me about your heat, Joe.
Excuse me?
Tell me about your heat.
My feet?
Your heat.
I don't understand.
The heat. The hot
The
weather where you
Oh,
are.
oh, my heat? Well, I will say one thing. For the fact that they have been making big deal out of the heat here on the local news media. Oh, this is terrible.
Oh,
Oh, it has
and by the way, on the national news media too.
well, P.S. Central Park, high temperature today, 89. Still has not hit 90 degrees yet.
Yeah. Well, I was watching this this morning because of the holiday. I usually would have CNBC on, but the markets were closed today, so I watched. I was watching CNN. I just switched by and just happened to see CNN, and they had a weather person doing the weather on their morning show. I think she must have used the phrase climate change like 6 times. The heat in the Northeast was climate change. The low temperatures last night and this morning, that's climate change because it should have been cooler, but it's not anymore. Alberto was climate change. Everything was climate change. Everything.
Well, I guess it
The,
was climate
the,
change then back in 1994 when the high temperature at Central Park on this day peaked at the highest for that particular summer, 98 degrees after a low of 75. It was also Father's Day in 1994 on this day, so it was the hottest Father's Day on record and broke the previous record on this date of 95 set 1 year previous in 1993. Now, as I said, we have yet to see 90 at Central Park. Yes, I know a few of you have popped up on the chat board and said, oh, it's 90 degrees here in Brooklyn and 91 here. Yeah, I know, but in the official weather record books, we're still looking for New York City to hit 90 degrees. And I can recall other years earlier than this 19th of June where we've seen temperatures a lot hotter than that. And case in point, here we were in 1994. What was that, Joe? That was blah, 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 blah,
30
30
years
years
years ago. 30 years
30
ago.
years ago. It hit 98 on this date. Now that to me is a record-breaking, hot, brutally hot day. I'm hearing people on the local news media here, oh, another brutally hot day today. And I'm saying 89 degrees. I said, what is this? Have we
Right.
now lowered the standards of brutally hot to I don't
Oh,
know. It's
soon it's going to be 50.
yeah,
That'll be
exactly.
the new standard. By the way, you want to have a conversation about climate change. That's fine. Okay. But don't have it outside the context of what you're doing as far as a weather broadcast is concerned. I don't think people need to be lectured, in my opinion. I don't think you need to lecture people in the morning about the fact that it's a hot day and it's because the climate is changing. All right. To me, it just speaks of the fact that somebody in a higher up executive position said, when you do the weather today, make sure you use the phrase climate change as many times as possible. That's what it smelled like to me.
Yeah, it doesn't smell good.
No, I mean just it's hot. People want to know how high it's going to be today, how warm it's going to be at night, and whether there's going to be some thunderstorms around, and if anything, there's going to be anything else to get in their way. I don't know that at 7 o'clock in the morning they need to be, bombarded with all this, you know, I guess if you want to say agenda material, that just is, I don't think I just don't think it has a place in a weathercast where you're trying to get tell people what the weather is and get them out the door.
Right. That's basically that's what it's all about on morning drive radio and now television or whatever it is to get you out the door with traffic and latest weather information. And you can throw a statistic here and there, but don't throw out opinions as well, unless you've actually done the research. You know, oh well, this scientist says that it's global warming, so I'll say it too. You know.
Yeah, it just doesn't have. I just don't think it has a place.
Now,
But
how do you explain? How do these people then explain? I think the hottest decade of the 20th century were the 1950s, and I can point to the 1950s and show you any number of days in June that were exceedingly hot, hotter than what we have already seen here in Central Park so far this season.
and by the way, nobody lives in Central Park. Okay, that's the thing. Nobody actually lives in the park. The park is
Nobody lives at Newark Airport.
Nobody lives at right, exactly, or on the right. Nobody lives on the runway where the thermometer sits over the blacktop. And it's ridiculous. It just really is. I will tell you this. I'm going to show you the high temperatures. I do, and again, we don't want to just, the whole world doesn't, obviously the whole world does not revolve over one particular point. Okay, so let's just forget New York for a moment. And I was just looking, it's got to be brutal though for the people in Maine. Okay, it was mid to upper 90s in northern Maine, Joe. Um,
Right.
I mean, Fort Kent, which is almost right, all the way up near the top, right on the near the Canadian border there, 97. Okay. I mean, these are people here that don't have air conditioners. Okay. I mean, they just
Right.
because they don't need them.
And then at this hour, I just took a look here. 91 at Fort Kent.
I mean, this has to be very, very difficult for folks up in this part of the country to experience temperatures like this because it just doesn't happen very often. Although in recent years it has. The Pisca, the Pisca, the Piscataquis River near Dover, Foxcroft, which is, if you look at the map where I have it pointed, it almost looks like the geographic center of the state, Joe. 96. Um, Freedom, Maine, 98. Maybe a few places like near Portland. Portland International Airport right now is 81, and they got to 90 today. I mean, even on the Maine coast, it got into the low 80s. Although I do see Winter Harbor, Maine, had a high of 68 today, and so did I'm having trouble reading this. Color Farms Wharf had a high of 68. They must literally be sitting right on the water for the temperatures to be that cool. But this is difficult. New Hampshire. I mean, you go 96 today in Bartlett, New Hampshire, 95 in Woodstock, New Hampshire, 97 in White Mountain National Forest, uh, 95 in Laconia, Concord, 93. I mean, these are pretty brutal. And I'm just talking temperature here. This is not heat index.
How about
Um,
90? How about 93 degrees at this hour, 7 p.m. 7, excuse me, that's a 7 p.m. reading. We're at 747 right now. 93 at Campbellton, New Brunswick. I'm not talking about New Brunswick, New Jersey. I'm talking about New Brunswick in Canada. 93 at 7 o'clock this evening. 93 also at Bathurst, New Brunswick.
Oh,
And yeah, these temperatures are more than just, you know, extreme. They're ridiculous.
yeah.
Crazy.
Logan got to 98 in Boston. And Logan's like right near the water too. So they got 98, 97. Oh, I didn't want to do that. Hold on. 97 for Norwood, Mass. 98 at the Ware River at Bear Falls. 96 at Blandford Service Road of 190. Whatever.
And
You
in
get
Nova Scotia, which you would expect, oh well, they're surrounded by water, so they must be much cooler. At the 7 o'clock, actually, it's 8 o'clock for them because they're on Atlantic time. At Kentville in Nova Scotia, 86 degrees. Not exactly. Dew point temperature, by the way, at Kentville, 71. Well, it probably feels a lot more like being down in New Orleans as opposed to being up in Nova Scotia, Canada.
By the way, if you're south of the Long Island Expressway on Long Island, you're saying what heat wave? 82 for a high today at Kennedy, 82 for Farmingdale. These are high temperatures. 82, Islip 82, Shirley 81, West Hampton Beach 81. On the East End, Montauk at 70. I mean, I've seen heat waves where it's low and middle 90s on the East End. So this is nothing. And at least for this part of the Northeast, across New Jersey, Pennsylvania, it was mostly upper 80s and low 90s. Down into Maryland, I mean, good God, it was cooler. Baltimore, at the airport at Baltimore, only got to 90 today, and uh, Washington 91 at Reagan International Airport for a high. I mean, these are not crazy numbers here.
Right. We've seen a lot, as our dear friend um, Norm Dvoskin, who for many, many years was on the weekends at News 12 Long Island, and who loved to quote, do little crazy sayings in his forecasts or mix some puns in from time to time. He would say, "What is the definition of capital punishment?" And his definition is anyone who lives in Washington, D.C. during July and August without an air conditioner. That's
Oh,
capital punishment.
the air does not move in Washington, D.C. when it's hot there. I mean, it's just brutal. 95 there is killer. Okay, I mean, it just really is brutal. Heat advisories are up. There's some excessive heat warnings up too in parts of Maine and New Hampshire, Southwest PA, Northwest Ohio, Northeast Indiana. They're going to go on for another several days at least. Probably be a few more excessive heat warnings along the way. Not a lot of severe weather tonight. We have severe thunderstorm watches in West Texas, in the corner of western most Texas, northward up through central New Mexico. We don't really mention New Mexico very much here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. The land of enchantment, a beautiful state. Tropical
And
storm,
wildfire problems in New
yes.
Mexico now.
Oh yeah, tropical storm warnings continue along the Texas coast, uh, including Corpus Christi and Brownsville. They've got quite a bit of rain today there, and we'll show you on the radar in a second. And we've got heat advisories for the interior of California. So let's look at Alberto. And of course, this morning when I wrote I was writing one of my pieces. There was a potential tropical cyclone, and sure enough, because I wrote it, I think it was probably around 8:30, 8 or 8:30, and sure enough, on the next advisory, they upgraded it to a tropical storm. There's not a whole lot of, I mean, there's some convection, and the center is much better defined than it was yesterday. We saw signs of that getting a little better organized last night, and there was enough there for the Hurricane Center when they flew their plane in this morning to make this a tropical storm. But it's a minimal tropical storm. It's actually been drifting west southwestward during the afternoon, and the main push of rain was on the northern fringe, and that a lot of that is now onshore. in South Texas. There's not a whole lot going on offshore, though there probably will be some more bands of rain coming in from time to time overnight into tomorrow. But it's raining pretty hard there in many locations, and of course down in Mexico. And this is going to go inland in Mexico. The center is well south of Brownsville, but remember we have a system here that's got a very broad structure. Uh, it really expanding, really extending from north to south, uh, covering a lot of geography here and having different impacts in different places. And here's the satellite loop. Look at these clouds, very strange, these clouds here. By the way, I did not, did I, let's, give me 1 second. I just want to check something here. Um, Hold on, I'm coming back.
Well, hello,
So,
everybody.
yes. So right now at my house, it's 76. Okay. And here in North Georgia. And the high today, because when I went out at midday today, Joe, it was in the mid 70s here because we had quite a bit of cloud. We had cloud cover, but you could, it would brighten up and, the sun would kind of poke through every once in a while. But it was more clouds than anything else. We also had this morning a nice, fresh northeast wind. And it really, if it was in the mid 60s, but we had a nice, fresh northeast wind, it made things feel really good. I'm just checking my Tempest by Weather Flow weather station today to see what my high temperature was. 84.2 was my high. So when the sun came out, the temperature did manage to jump into the low 80s between 3 and 4 o'clock after a morning low of 65.1. And yesterday it was 67 for a low, 84 for a high. I know a number of you have expressed concern over the Georgia heat. So I'm just trying to alleviate your concern. 67.3 on 2 days ago on Monday for a low, and 87.6. And Sunday, Joe, I got to 89.8, and Saturday was the hottest day since I've been here. This is the hottest day I've had, 94.3. So I actually had 90 last Friday and 94.3 on Saturday.
And
So
what was
those,
Atlanta Saturday?
I want to say they were like 96 or 97. It was hot down. I was in Marietta on Saturday, which is north of Atlanta, but not by a much, not by a lot. And it was hot out there. I mean, it really was. You see Alberto in the Southwest Gulf. There's all this cloudiness that runs from western New York, and actually the clouds from Tennessee. If you look from Tennessee northeastward, the clouds are moving southwest to northeast. But if you look at from Tennessee, south of southern Tennessee down to Alabama and Georgia, the clouds are moving from north to south. I mean, this is really very interesting here. And there's also, the Hurricane Center has been mentioning disturbed weather that's east of the Bahamas, and you can see there's a little twist there that is moving west northwestward. Uh, not there, they have a low probability of development with this as it heads maybe toward the southeast coast of the U.S. as a weak disturbance. And this is something that the GFS and the European were both pointing out. Very, very small system, and obviously it is. And of course, you see Alberto coming in. A lot of lightning strikes going on in central New Mexico, where we have severe weather, and also some scattered thunderstorms around the Great Lakes, and also some thunderstorms, Joe. Fairly now the lightning strikes have disappeared, but in the last couple of hours, there were quite a few lightning strikes going on in Vermont, New Hampshire, uh, northwest Massachusetts, and that's all pretty much diminished. So doesn't look like we're going to get a whole lot. But tomorrow there might be more thunderstorms in upstate New York and in New England.
In fact, the possibility for a slight chance of severe over portions of New England and upstate New York tomorrow, and the zone of marginal reaches further down south into a portion of the upper and mid Hudson Valley, and the possibility for general thunderstorms comes all the way as far south as the I-84 corridor. So tomorrow, it would not be surprising if, let's say, you're traveling north up toward Dutchess or Ulster County, and especially further north up to, let's say, Columbia County, up toward the Albany area, that you could run into some late day thunderstorm activity. And as I mentioned, the SPC folks are actually putting a kind of a stripe of a slight chance of severe. So some of those storms, as you go well up into the interior of New York State, could end up being rather nasty. So that's something for you to consider if any of you are going to be doing any traveling across parts of the Northeast tomorrow.
And you can see what's left on the radar in Massachusetts with a little cluster there of a dying little thunderstorm complex and also some dying showers in coastal Maine. You see a couple of scattered severe thunderstorm warnings in northwest Ohio and southeastern Michigan and northeast Indiana. We have some thunderstorms in eastern Wisconsin around Green Bay, moving into Lake Michigan. And here's the rain from Alberto also setting off a few special marine warnings and maybe even a severe thunderstorm or two. You can see some heavier cells here just to the west now of Corpus Christi and bands of rain that go almost, but not quite to Del Rio, Texas. So a lot of that rain is really spread inland. And again, much for, the center of this is right on the southern edge of the radar echoes, and that's a fair distance south of Brownsville. We see severe thunderstorms tonight around and northeast of El Paso, bunch of severe thunderstorm warnings there. And we've got some severe thunderstorm and flash flood warnings further north in New Mexico and extending into south central Colorado. And there's some scattered precip across Montana, a little bit on the Pacific Northwest, but most of the West is dry. And as Joe said, we do have some severe weather risk. Now, they had marginal risk from Maine southwestward to western Indiana and a small area of slight risk in southeastern Michigan and northwest Ohio. That's a great pinpointing job by the SPC. A little narrow area of marginal risk from southern Wisconsin to northeast Missouri. Then you have marginal to slight risk along the South Texas coast from Brownsville to just north of Corpus Christi, and then inland by a handful of miles. And then it becomes a marginal risk as you go further west. And where they have the severe thunderstorm watch, we got marginal risk up and down the eastern part of New Mexico and that small portion of western Texas. And as Joe said, for tomorrow, SPC's got a slight risk, northern Pennsylvania, southern New York, uh, going east, north of Route 84 mostly, and running up into Massachusetts, southwest New Hampshire, southern half of Vermont. The marginal risk gets down maybe a little bit south of Route 84, and then the general thunderstorm risk literally runs right through. The line cuts off over Long Island Sound and over northern New Jersey. So, it's a sharp cutoff. So if you're from New Jersey south, Long Island, you probably won't see anything. And if you're further north up in upstate New York, north of Route 84, you probably will see something. And then southeast Wyoming, northeast Colorado, western Nebraska in a marginal risk. And then on day 3, we have a small area of marginal risk for northern New Jersey, the Hudson Valley, and western Connecticut, Joe, as well as back to the Catskills and parts of southern New York and northern and north central and northeast PA, and a marginal risk from central Nebraska northeastward into central Minnesota. So there you have it. Little upper trough and a weak front on Friday might set off some isolated severe thunderstorms and maybe some scattered activity. I'm not thinking you're going to see widespread activity with this.
And I'm just taking a look here, Joe, on some remarks that were put up by New York State Governor Hochul, Kathy Hochul, giving a warning to all New York residents about the dangerous heat. And I'm quoting now, I'm quoting Governor Hochul, quote, with temperatures we have not seen in our lifetime. With
Oh, God.
temperatures that we have not
Are, are,
seen.
are you really? Is that the quote?
That is a quote. That is a quote. With temperatures that we have not seen in our lifetime. That according to Governor Hochul.
In other words,
In,
you
in
never
other words,
had hot weather before in June in New York.
maybe she's looking at 90 degrees Fahrenheit and then changing it to 305.3 degrees Kelvin. And maybe that's what's confusing her. You know, I mean that isn't. I mean that statement isn't even close to being true. I
It's
know,
it's
and you.
preposterous.
I mean, I know, and you know that you have. We have grown up in temperatures in June much hotter than this.
Look, you know what it is.
Gas, gaslighting, gaslighting to make it seem like we're in a climate emergency. I mean, it's an early summer heat wave. And again, admittedly, summer doesn't begin officially until tomorrow at 4:51. But my God, I mean, do you have to go over the cliff and say it's a heat wave that with temperatures that we haven't seen in our lifetime? For God's sake, give me a break. Give
You
me a break.
you have an entire. Well, you and I are old enough, okay, but you have an entire. I would say anybody under the age of 40, to be fair, anybody anybody under the age of 40 and probably under the age of 30 must think that this stuff never happened before, ever.
Well, then they have a very short. I mean, I led off the show tonight. I led off the show pointing out that in 1994, 30 years ago, it was 98 degrees on this day in Central Park, 15 degree, and after a low of 75. That's 15 degrees above average. And that 98 tied June 22nd, 1988, for the hottest temperature in June since the 101 degree reading that was hit in 1966. All of these events have happened in many people's lifetime. I mean, 98, 101, early to mid. I mean, come on, come on, give me. And as I just said, Central Park didn't even get to 90 today. Yes, I know the outer boroughs probably hit 90 or 91, but how does that compare with 98 or 101 degrees? I mean, again, this is all
You know what
you
I'm
know.
dreading, and it just occurred to me.
What?
And maybe I'm thinking you're going to agree with me. All this hyperbole going on right now, all right? All this hyperbole, all this exaggeration that's going on right now. What is it going to be like if we ever get a hurricane threat?
Oh my God.
And
Oh,
let's say, or let's say it's a hurricane threat because they're automatically everything is going to go to Sandy. Okay. So you're going to have to first explain how it's not the same thing. Okay. And then, try to contain, I mean, unless it's justified, you're going to try to contain expectations to keep them, reasonable and realistic. My God, the hyperbole we're going to see, because I mean, we haven't really seen anything in 12 from Sandy was 12 years ago. We haven't really seen real hype. We haven't had a real hurricane threat in the last 12 years. What are they going to do with that because it's going to happen. If it doesn't happen this year, it might happen next year or the year after or the year after that. But one of these years, we're going to have it. And I can't imagine what the coverage is going to be like. And all I know is I'm going to be sitting here saying, thank God I'm not part of that anymore. That I can sit here with my colleague Joe Rayo with your white hair and my gray hair on Sunday through Thursdays at 7:35 p.m. and the occasional Friday and Saturday.
as I've said, as I said before, we had a consultant that used to come to News 12, and he said to my boss, Janine Rose, the news director, he said, Joe is a great forecaster, but he needs wattage. In other words, Joe needs to jump up and down in front of the weather map and get people excited. And so when he was there in the control room watching me one night, I had the camera guy, I had the director tell the camera guy on my, I made like a little gesture. I said, close in here. They closed in on like a head and shoulders shot. And I said, this is when we had a hurricane. I think it was Isabel. This goes back to like 20 years ago, and everybody's talking, and I said, I will tell you when it's time to worry. He said, now everybody calm down. He said, when I think that if there's reason to be upset or reason to be concerned, I will tell you. This is not one of those occasions. And like after that show was over, the guy said, that's beautiful. That's great. Joe doesn't need wattage. He just needs to talk like that all the time. And that was it. I never had any problems with that consultant after that. So you don't need to jump up and down. You don't need to scare people. You don't need to, as I mentioned a few moments ago, with this alarming statement from the governor, gaslight them into thinking this is the worst heat that you've ever seen in your lifetime. It isn't. It isn't. We've seen worse. And, it's again, it's hot weather. It's June, for God's sake. And if
Right.
we have heat like this through June, July, August, it's summertime. All right. And again, we had the
Come
new term.
talk to me when it's come talk to me like in the heat waves that you and I experienced, like the one in 1977, where you had like,
Oh,
4 out of 5 days with temperatures over 100. When we have something, a heat
right,
wave like that, come back, then come back and talk to me.
right.
But until then, no. And Miss Blue Ocean, actually, Jeff's company has done some work for me. So I know Jeff, and I talk to him not very often, every once in a while, and I know his work. So and he certainly does a reputable job with what he does. But I don't watch. I watch very little television, from especially news programs. I do not watch news programs on any channel. So this way, nobody can accuse me one way or the other of being
As I
biased in one direction or another.
as I said a while back, when now every time it gets frigidly cold, oh, does that mean we have the polar vortex now? And now every time it gets hot, even a little hot, they're going to say the new term now is, oh, we must have a heat dome over us. I
I
mean,
know. And it's Miss Blue Ocean. Thank you, appreciate it. She loves us, she says. And but the bottom line is, we're just kind of we're just doing weather every day. This is what we do. This is what we enjoy, and we really don't want to get involved in these conversations that ultimately sets one group of people's hair on fire and the other group of people's heads explode. We just want to just do weather, call it as it is, and just go from there.
and
I
Chris
think
on the chat board says, I remember that heat wave that Joe Chiaffi mentioned back in 1977. I remember looking at the thermometer on the back porch and it said very close to 100. That 1977 summer was highlighted, unfortunately, by Son of Sam.
right.
Um, and everybody was talking about that. And it was also a brutally hot summer. I
And
remember
you and I,
listening to,
you and I lived in the neighborhood where a couple of the people that were his victims, and
right.
also in that '77 heat wave, did we not lose power?
Well, I don't remember. I remember
I remember losing power in that.
I remember there were rolling brownouts because Con Edison was having a problem keeping up with all the people turning on their air conditioning at full blast. And, you know,
Well, we know about the grid
yep.
even today. All right, let's take a look at what's going on here on the WPC with respect to rainfall. I feel like I've been looking at the same map now for 3 days because it really does look like the same map for the last 3 days. Um, Areas of let's just for round numbers, 5 to 10 inches of additional rain in South Texas. This was actually the 12Z, so now the 0Z. Okay, so it's a little modified now. It's a little less because they've already had rain today, but still another additional 3 to 6 inches, let's say, on top of what they've had. Again, with thunderstorm activity on and off in New England. We're looking at some areas getting some inch and a half to 2.5 inch amounts, particularly with a cold front that's coming on Sunday. Heavy rains from eastern South Dakota into Wisconsin and back across the northern part of Michigan and the Upper Peninsula, inch and a half to 2.5 inch amounts there. Some uh, rain in Arizona, uh, going, some of this moisture, by the way, is going to wind up, moving into West Texas and eventually up into New Mexico and Colorado. So they're going to, because it's coming around the base of that ridge. So they're going to see some of that rain here in New Mexico. Half inch to an inch there, a little pocket of 2 inches plus in southwest Colorado. And it doesn't rain often in Colorado since they get most of their uh, water from snowmelt more than anything else. And the West Coast is high and dry. Just this is WPC on Alberto, the rainfall forecast, and the yellow is 4 to 6 inches. Again, this is on top of what's already fallen today, and I don't have any numbers to speak of. I'll see if I can look it up when I get a chance to see if they've local offices have posted anything. But another 4 to 6 inches from the coast back west toward Laredo and toward the Mexico border, and then lesser amounts, an inch to inch or two, as far north as San Antonio and the big rains further south in the mountains of Mexico. So it's a matter of waiting for this upper high to start breaking down. Actually, uh, today is probably, and into tomorrow morning is when the upper high is at its peak strength. And we're seeing it here. This is at 8 o'clock this evening, the way it's supposed to look. And let me just get rid of this. And there you go. So here's where the upper high is sitting, somewhere over New Jersey. So the hottest air is going to be just to the north of that upper high, because you've got mostly west winds in upstate New York and into New England, which is why their temperatures were much higher than what we saw in areas from southern New England, the lower Hudson Valley, southward down into Virginia. There was nothing exceptional about those temperatures. Still had that deep trough in the west. Now, when we might see some hotter temperatures, we'll probably see some higher numbers tomorrow because as that high goes southward, then we're going to be on the northern edge with more of a west wind, particularly as we go into Friday and maybe on Saturday, depending on whether there's any thunderstorm activity running around, if there's cloud cover to hold things down. And then eventually, the high really flattens out down in the Gulf states, and that allows the flow to open up, and you start to get some, uh, some air coming down out of Canada. You can see on Sunday there's an upper low that forms between Sault Ste. Marie and James Bay, and a short wave swinging eastward. So we'll have to keep our eyes on that because that might be a little instigator of thunderstorm activity and severe weather late Sunday, Sunday night, and maybe even into Monday until the trough goes by. And then beyond that, because now the ridge moves to the southwest next week. So there's a little bit more of a northwest flow, a slightly cooler flow, maybe temperatures back to where they should be for this time of year with a bit of a humidity break. And then eventually the trough does pull up somewhat, and uh, it might argue for a return for some hotter weather later next week. Then there's another trough that drops into the east right around July 1st and 2nd. And then after that goes by, I mean, it's just sort of a nondescript pattern to me. There's nothing in here that is so, overly
These
exciting.
brief shots, these troughs, these short waves are relatively small and they are rapidly eroding by the time they reach here in the Northeast. So we do get relief. For example, it looks like right now, Tuesday of next week will be a day of relief, at least in terms of humidity, in terms of dew point, and maybe not necessarily a huge drop in temperature, but anything would be better than, let's say, low and mid 90s. Is when we drop into the upper 80s with lower dew points, that will make it feel better out there. But again, it only is going to last about a day because, as you pointed out, Joe, the ridge just builds right back up again as soon as that system passes off. And then the next system, the next short wave coming our way toward the end of the month or at the beginning of July, that too is one of these short-term events. Nothing that
Right.
will, no protracted spell, 3 or 4 days of, oh, lovely northwest winds, cooler, drier air. No, that's not going to be the case. These systems are only going to be here for about a day or so. So when they do arrive, when they do come, turn off your fans and air conditioners, give them at least a 24-hour break, but they'll be turning right back on again because, again, these ridges just want to build back in and bring back the heat and humidity.
Pressures remain low in the southwest Gulf after Alberto moves inland, and the GBOS models are generating another low. This one's a little further south than this one was, so we'll have to see how far north the rain gets. But it doesn't look, they're coming so close together. Uh, it doesn't really develop it very much, and just sort of stream some moisture in. But we'll see what happens as we go through the next several days or so. And in the meantime, of course, there's a little trough that comes down on a Thursday into New England and upstate New York in the late afternoon and evening. So you see where the GFS generates some showers and storms to the north, and then they die out during the overnight. That front is still hanging around on Friday. It's very close by, a little bit further south. So maybe a slightly better chance further south with some thunderstorms later Friday into Friday evening. You see them there in southeast New England. You see them in the Hudson Valley in northern New Jersey, and back into Pennsylvania. And then they go out. And then Saturday, we have another day of heat, humidity. Here comes the cold front for Sunday. It looks like by Sunday evening there'll be some showers and thunderstorms around, and it looks like we'll also see some showers and storms linger into the first part of Monday before it goes out. Big shot of dry air, slightly drier air, slightly cooler air for Tuesday, maybe even more Wednesday and Thursday of next week. Then that goes out and then probably gets hot again for a couple of days. And then we got another front that goes by. Just to add to what you said, uh, if um, if the breaks are going to be short, if it looks like the pattern is where we're seeing things moving across southern Canada, going from west to east. So the warm-ups, that the return to heat and humidity on the backside before the next front will probably not be as extended as this one is.
Well, I hope you're right.
Well, I mean, if
I
there's no big ridge building in the eastern part of the United States, it's going to be hard for it to get hot for more than a couple of, maybe two days, maybe 3 days, and then you get a cold front. Then you get a day or two where it's okay. Then you get maybe 2 days or 3 days where it gets hot again. And I'm looking here at July 2nd. There's actually a fairly strong front that goes by, if that's right. I don't know if it is. That would be quite a bit of relief. In fact, the front on this gets all the way down to off the Georgia coast to northern Florida. From other than that, we're kind of we're just seeing the pattern go into July mode.
Now we spoke about climate change and people speaking out about this. Then there are the people who are stupid, just plain all out stupid, and hopefully will be going to jail for. I'm sharing it on my screen right now, Joe. Did you?
Yeah, it's up there now. What
All
is
right,
he? Oh, is this the Stonehenge guy? The
right. Did
Stonehenge
you see
people?
this? There are
Yes.
people who are protesting climate change, and this is how they're protesting climate change. They decided to go and deface Stonehenge by making using some kind of paint and painting orange. And you can see somebody's trying to stop them. And
Well,
the fact remains that if you deface these stones, and I hope that they caught these idiots and dragged them back off to jail. The fact is that the Stonehenge, on those stones there are lichen, kind of like a mossy plant, which actually serves to protect the stones naturally. And here, this obviously would interfere with that. They might even kill the lichen that are on the stone. But this is the way of. And now this jerk over here, this dummy is like sitting down. Now they're sitting down, right? So I hope that the authorities came and dragged them off to jail. I hope they get whatever the penalty is, maximum penalty. I mean, this. I know people get upset about climate change and how people are not seemingly doing anything about it, but give me a break. Come on, is
and
this
that was,
way
by the way, from the Associated Press, from AP. Yeah, this is it. Let's protest climate change and go into a museum and destroy pieces of art. Makes total sense to me. You
right?
know, I mean, but that's what gets you attention. They're just so stupid. You're right. They're just they're stupid. They're kids. They're they're empty-headed. They come out of an education system that keeps them that really keeps them empty-headed, and they're fed all this crap, and then they go, oh well, let's go fight climate change by defacing some a monument or whatever it is.
Right.
Stupid stuff. All right. So
And
let's
again, maybe one of the kids will say at the trial, maybe say, "Well, we thought it needed a paint job after
yes.
1,500 years."
Well, you've got no taste if you took orange.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're going to do that, at least get a decorator's opinion on it. You know. Uh, all right. Let's do Briller Jeopardy tonight, which you
All right,
have.
I've got it tonight, and this is interesting. I know that Scott. We're continuing with the. We're continuing. Oh, I hate when this happens. Hang on for a second. Um, we've been doing the retired names of hurricanes, and here we go. So on this Briller Jeopardy, we continue with retired tropical systems. Tonight, we have three letters that we're going to use: N,
NONP.
N, O, and P. And out of three letters, only a total of five between all three. Only a total of five retired names for N, O, and P.
So I'm
So
gonna.
we'll start with N.
I want to say Nate.
We'll say it.
Nate.
Nate, you're right. 2017.
And I'm going to join Jason Fox with Opal
But let's concentrate on N first. Let's get N
and
out.
all right. Rich Rothmansky says
You feel it?
Noel, Noel,
Said
Noel, Noel.
you feel in a holiday mood? Yes. Noel 2007. That takes care of the N's. How about the O?
Anthony Orr, who, by the way, sent me an interesting statistic today. And sorry, Anthony, I know you sent me one the other day and I forgot it. But this is the latest that we've had the first storm of the season since 2014. But the average date of the first tropical storm is June 21st. So it's the average start date is actually 3 days from now. So that kind of is in line with that. But over the last 10 years, this is a quote unquote late start. Uh,
Yes.
okay. All right. So now we're up to the, thank you, Anthony, for sharing that with me. All right. So we're doing the O's now, correct?
Right.
Patrick Darcy says Otto.
Otto is correct. 2016.
And John Melander says Oscar.
Oscar? No.
But Jason Fox said we said Opal. Opal?
Opal. Yes. Those are the two.
Opal. Those are the two. Um,
And now we go to
okay.
P.
And now we go to P. Uh, oh, Paloma. That's right. Rich Rothmansky. I was trying to remember Paloma in
Paloma.
2008.
And there you go. And
And
that's
that's
it.
it.
Those are the five.
Okay. There's not that many, there aren't that many after this. So I mean, I could think of an R, a W. Well, maybe there'll be more than just two or three. We'll see, because we're coming to the end of the alphabet. So,
Yes.
all right. Can't think of anything else to say. I've let the gas out of the bag tonight, so I'm feeling a lot better. And the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, brought to you by Tempest by Weatherflow. Tempest is the revolutionary weather system, and if you get it, you will be part of the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. Easy to install, runs off your mobile device. Link is pinned to the top of the chat board. Use the coupon code Spring 2024, which I will change probably after Thursday. So we'll have a new coupon code on Sunday. But the coupon code is Spring 2024. If you use it, you will get.
You'll get 10% off.
Okay. All right. So we'll see everybody tomorrow night for the last show of the work week. Nighty night.
I just quickly, somebody asked
Yes.
about somebody is going to be in Chicago for the Met Chicago Cub game on Sunday and wanted a forecast. And it's passed on the chat board. All I can tell you is that it looks like there could be some showers and thunderstorms possibly early in the day on Sunday, hopefully sweeping on out in time for a clearing trend. I'm not sure if that game is in the afternoon. All the better if it were a night game, because by then the unsettled weather will be fully clear of the Chicago area. But it looks like Sunday will kick off with some unsettled, showery weather
And that was
for
from Keith James II, by the way. He was the one asking about the Mets Cubs game in
right.
Chicago on Sunday.
Something I always wanted to do, Joe, and I've yet to do it. It's a bucket list for me. Is to there are two ballparks I want to go to before I leave this planet, and one of them is Wrigley Field in Chicago, and the other is Fenway Park in Boston. So he's going to be at Wrigley on Sunday. Again, a cold front will be moving through first thing Sunday morning in Chicago. Showers and scattered thunderstorms, but things should be improving during the midday and afternoon. All the better, however, if it's a night game, because by then not only will the showery weather be long gone, but hopefully you'll get a drier, clearer, and less humid airflow in time for the ball game at Wrigley on Sunday. So we'll see.
Right. Nighty night.
Nighty night, folks.